Don't you ever ask them why. If they told you, you would cry. So just look at them and sigh. I know they love you. Let me see, in 1954, I was 13 years old. And for my 13th birthday present, I had a choice. My friend Fred Moore had gotten a bicycle, and he had actually, on his bicycle, gone all the way from the north of England to Bad Nauheim in Germany, and he met Elvis. And I can't tell you how impressive that was for someone to actually meet Elvis. And especially because it was my friend, my buddy. But my mother told me that we couldn't afford a bicycle, but we could afford a cheap guitar. So, you know, I made my first metaphysical choice probably. I chose the guitar instead of the bicycle. When I was younger, there was only one radio station that played rock and roll, and that was Radio Luxembourg, and it would come from Luxembourg in Europe and be broadcast, and we could pick it up on this funky little radio we had in the north of England in Manchester. And on Sunday night, when I was supposed to be going to bed and getting ready for school the next day, that's when at 9 o'clock they would play the American Top 40. So of course, you know, we didn't have transistor radios in those days, and what happened is that the main radio that my mother and father used to listen to at this particular show that I wanted to listen to, if I put my ear to my bedpost, I could hear the radio because it was right below my bed. And I could really hear pretty good if I put my ear to the bedpost. And so I used to listen to, you know, early Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis and Fats Domino and Buddy Holly and Gene Vincent and Eddie Cochran and the Platters, you know, Little Richard, unbelievable rock and roll stuff. Set me on fire, and I've never looked back. So I started to play. Skiffle was very popular. Lonnie Donegan was bringing kind of country folk blues songs back from America, Rock Island Line, and Does Your Chewing Gum Lose Its Flavor on the Bedpost Overnight? Really interesting song. It was a very simple form of music. You had an acoustic guitar, you had a wash tub bass where you would get a tub or a box and put a broom handle on and attach a string, and with tension, doom, 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 like that. And then a washboard that you would play with thimbles for the drums thing. So it was very simple and very cheap to be able to make kind of skiffle music. And you know, every 15-year-old kid after World War II, you know, if they weren't kicking a ball around the street, you know, were playing skiffle music. And I think Lonnie Donegan really helped promote the early days of getting kids into music, because it was so simple and so cheap. I played guitar for many years. I'm not very good, but I know how to play enough to support my own songwriting, and I know how to play rhythm guitar, of course. I'm certainly not a lead guitar player. And then one day in late '68, I asked Stephen. I said, you know, you play piano. Show me how to play. Start me off on this thing. And so he showed me a chord, an A chord, and I learned that. It was pretty simple. It was just, you know, 3 notes with the right hand and an octave bass note with the left hand. And I learned an A chord, and then I learned a D chord, and then I learned an E chord, and all of a sudden you're off and running. Most of the songs I write, I've only got 3 or 4 chords in them anyway. I try and retain a very simple sense of music, because I want everyone to be able to come along with me on the journey. I don't think I've written a complicated piece of music in my life. And, it takes great effort to restrain yourself and keep as simple as possible, but that's what I try and do. I started playing the guitar at 13. I started playing the piano when Stephen showed me those first 3 chords in 1969. So what was I then, 27? Yes, 27. And you know, I clumsily fight my way through my music. The thing about music for me was that, you know, the Hollies which was my first professional band, were just 5 kids from Manchester who couldn't wait to get out of town, really. You know, you're supposed to do what your dad did and what his dad before. I mean, if it was good enough for your dad, so well, it's good enough for you. Well, my mother and father never never laid that one on me. I couldn't go there, and they wouldn't let me go there. I call it the gold watch theory, where you're supposed to work for a company for 50 years, and you retire and you get a gold watch, and you're supposed to lie down and die, and then make way for the next workers. But I never fell for that. I traveled up and down Manchester with the Hollies, and our drummer, Don Rathbone, was the drummer, because not only was he a pretty decent drummer, but he had the van, you see. Very important in the early days of rock and roll. You've got to have a van to move around all your stuff with. So we went up and down Manchester and up and down England for many, many years. And then one day we were playing a lunchtime show at the Cavern in Liverpool. And a producer from EMI, Ron Richards, came to see us, and he actually quite liked the Hollies. He thought we had good energy, and we could sing decently, and we had decent songs. So he came and asked us to record, and so we did, and had a great time. This was 1963. We cut our first hit record, Ain't That Just Like Me, which was a cover of a Coasters song that one of the merchant seamen brought into the north of England. That's how we got a lot of our early American music. You'd have people and friends whose brothers were in the merchant navy, and they go to America, and they come back and bring all these records and play them for you. And in 1968, I actually was getting a little bored is not quite the right word, but I was getting a little disturbed at the Hollies. They didn't want to record some songs that I'd written that I thought were pretty decent songs. Teach Your Children being one of them, Lady of the Island being another. And then Crosby found me, and he said, I love these songs. They're the ones that are crazy. I come to America in '68. I joined David and Stephen. We sing for that very first time in Joni's living room in Laurel Canyon, and my life has never been the same since. A great deal of the process in making music that I found was that I imitated my heroes. I used to stand in front of a mirror, and I'd made a plywood guitar, and I used to, practice standing in front of the mirror, how cool I was and stuff, and no, let's put the guitar lower, just silly stuff. And you would imitate your heroes, and then you would forget it all, and you would bring it out, and it would come out your way. So I learned to sing high harmony with Don and Phil Everly and the Louvin brothers from Nashville. I learned rock and roll from the early rock and rollers, and you would just imitate them. You would shake your ass, and you would actually imitate these people, and then forget it all, and it comes out your way. And that was the process for me, and it's been the process for a lot of friends of mine, this imitating and pulling yourself towards it. And it's like I've done with all my life. I dream dreams, and then I start to pull myself towards the dream. If I want to sculpt, and then I start learning about marble, and I start learning about hammers and chisels, and you pull yourself towards the dream, and you can do it. It's amazing what you can get away with. It really is. I've always seen myself as an artist first. I do make music, obviously. I do collect, I do sculpt, I do take photographs. I have a book out right now called Eye to Eye of 185 of my images taken from the last 50 years. And a lot of people say to me, how does a musician take photographs? How is that? And to me, it's a really kind of an odd question, because it's the same energy to me. It just depends on how I want to express myself at a given moment. If I see an image and I have my camera with me, which I usually do most of the time, I'm happy to take it. If I'm thinking about music, which I'm doing as we're speaking right now, I have a dozen songs in my head, going through this completion process of almost like a conveyor belt, and they just come, they fall off the end, and it makes room for other songs. It's all me trying to shoot off my mouth, trying to express myself, trying to let people know, including myself, that they're not crazy, that they're not alone, that there are people who are nuts out there that are trying to live their lives the best way possible. And I'm just trying to be the best example I can be, the best example. I'm trying to be the best husband, the best father, the best musician, the best artist I can be, because this is a very short life, and we just have to get on with it. Part of this process that we were talking about in terms of imitating other people and then forgetting it and bringing it out your way, it kind of goes with technology too. I mean, look what we're doing here on this video podcast. A podcast, what kind of a word is podcast? 20 years ago, we would have been burned as witches for half the technology that we have around us right now. But they're only tools. It's only a tool to enable a creative person, a creative musician, or a creative photographer to get to the idea that's in their mind the fastest way. That's what I want to do. It's one of the reasons why, you know, I was very happy to have Russell Kunkel and Nathaniel Kunkel engineer and produce my last record. They're fast at what they do. All I want you to do is to get the songs out of my head the fastest way possible. I need to shorten that distance between my thoughts and the final product. And all this technology, all these boards and digital pianos and computer screens and iPods, that's all part of the process. It's all a tool to enable you to get your feelings down as fast as possible. In, let me see, late 60s, I was in my band, my previous band to Crosby, Stills and Nash, called the Hollies out of England. Very, very good band. We were playing in Leeds, in the north of England, one of my very last shows with the Hollies. This would have been in probably late 67 or very early in 1968. I began to realize that if we didn't teach our children a better way of dealing with our fellow human beings, that the very future of the planet may be in jeopardy. Most of the ills are created by people who are not brought up to respect or to be compassionate about their fellow human beings. And so I decided to write a song to let it known to myself, basically, because I only write for myself. And if I happen to touch my heart, then maybe I stand a chance of touching your heart. But I began to realize that we could learn a lot from our children as well as teach them. And that's why in the middle of the song it kind of switches round and puts the onus on teaching your parents well. Because, as I said, we have to deal with this in a much more dignified and humane way. We have to deal with life, you know. We have to treat our fellow travelers on this planet with great respect and treat everybody the way that you would want to be treated. That's one of the reasons why I wrote Teach Your Children. Hello everybody, I'm Graham Nash. I'm about to try and show you my song Teach Your Children, and you'll soon figure out it's pretty simple. It's in D, but I've tuned the bottom string down to a low D, so it gives us a little bit of a drone sound. And the intro, you know, try and imagine Jerry Garcia's beautiful pedal steel beginning, but the chords from the beginning are like this. So all we did was go from D to G to A. That's the opening. To the G, to the D, to the A. So even though I've got the bottom string tuned down to D, I have to do the chords slightly differently, and this is what Stephen taught me. So instead of a normal G chord like this, my G chord, because of the bottom string is down to D, I put my thumb over it and do a G that way. It's kind of like that. You can't do that because of the D, right? So that's the G chord. That's the opening. You who are on the road must have a code. So the first verse of Teach Your Children goes like this. You who are on the road must have a code that you can live by, and so become yourself, because the past is just a goodbye. Teach children well, their father's hell, it slowly go by. Guess what? The second verse, the chords are exactly the same. So here's the second verse. Teach your children well, their father's hell, it slowly go by, and feed them on your dreams. The one they pick is the one you know by. Don't you ever ask them why. If they told you, you would cry. So just look at them. Here's the chorus. Starts in G. Don't you ever ask them why. If they told you, you would cry. So just look at them and sigh. I know they love you. So in that chorus, it's D, G, D, and the only other odd chord is this B minor. Sigh. Right? So there's the chorus. And you, of tender years, you can't know the fears. The third verse goes, strangely enough, with exactly the same chords as the first and the second verse. It's Stephen and David's background singing that makes it all different. They're doing, can you hear, right, you know, in the record. But the melody for the third verse is, and you of tender years, you can't know the fears that your elders grew by. Help them with your youth, 'cause they seek the truth before they can die. Teach your parents well, 'cause their children's hell will slowly. The fourth verse. Teach your parents well, 'cause their children's hell will slowly go by, and feed them on your dreams. The one they pick is the one you'll know by. Don't you ever ask them why. If they told you, you would cry. So just look at them and sigh. And we come to the last chorus. Don't you ever ask them why. If they told you, you would cry. So just look at them and sigh. I know they love you. Pretty simple, eh? 3 chords apart from that B minor in the chorus. Hope you enjoy it. Here's the performance of my song, Teach Your Children. Who are on the road must have a code that you can live by, and so become yourself, because the past is just a goodbye. Teach your children well, their father's hell, it slowly go by, and feed them on your dreams. The one they pick is the one you know by. Don't you ever ask them why. If they told you, you would cry. So just look at them and sigh, and know they love you. And you of tender years, you can't know the fears that your elders grew by. So help them with your youth, 'cause they seek the truth before they can die. Teach your parents well, 'cause their children's hell will slowly go by. Them on your dreams, the one they pick is the one you'll know by. Don't you ever ask them why. If they told you, you would cry. So just look at them and sigh, and know they love you. Enjoy.